Hello, Aries. If you're hearing this voice, it's not a coincidence. Something big is coming your way, and no, it won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It will come quietly, softly, but powerful enough to shift the deepest part of your soul in 2025. You'll walk through 3 doors: money, a funeral, and a wedding. Not by chance, not to test you, but to awaken you, and everything that's about to unfold starts with one simple question. Do you dare to live a life where you're no longer lacking, no longer forcing, but finally full from the inside out? That's why we begin with the first door, a moment that may look like a reward, but is really a test when money is no longer just money, but a mirror of the soul. Aries, have you been feeling it lately? Something shifting, not out there, but right here in your chest, like a quiet wave rising from the deep, a feeling that doesn't quite have a name, but pulses through you like your own heartbeat. You walk into a room and the air feels heavier. You hear someone call your name, but no one speaking. Sometimes you stand in the middle of your familiar life, and suddenly everything feels foreign. That's not random. That's your intuition waking up. That's your soul being summoned. The universe is speaking to you, not with words, but with energy, and it begins with something you've spent your whole life trying to avoid. Money. For you, Aries, money has never been the goal. You didn't come here to get rich. You don't count every dollar. You've never needed a title because you, Aries, you didn't come to collect, you came to lead. You live by ideals, you fight for love, you're willing to burn yourself just to light the way for someone else. But in doing so, you've forgotten something sacred. You too deserve beautiful things, not because you sacrificed, not because you earned it through pain, but simply because you're alive. You've given so much that receiving now feels unfamiliar. You've stood in the background, clapping for everyone else's success. You've helped others build their dreams and felt guilty even thinking about your own. But now, 2025 is arriving like a mirror. The universe is no longer asking, "What do you want?" It's asking you directly, "Do you have the courage to receive what you truly deserve?" See, money isn't paper, it's energy, and that energy, when placed in your hands, can become a miracle or a mirror. You can use it to build a safe home, to send your mom a gift without hesitation, to lift someone who's on the edge, or simply to give yourself a life where you don't have to bleed to feel worthy. But money will also challenge you. It will shine a light on every old belief you've been hiding, and you'll hear those old voices rise up inside. Am I being selfish? Do I even deserve this? Your hands may tremble as you invest in your own dream, as if you're betraying some unspoken vow that said, Aries is only allowed to live for others. But Aries, you weren't sent here to be a soldier forever. You came to learn something far harder than fighting, receiving, softening, living fully. So when abundance finds you, don't see it as a reward for your suffering. See it as a signal that your soul has grown enough to understand. Living in prosperity is not a sin. It's a higher form of gratitude. In your 2025 sky, Jupiter, the planet of blessings and expansion, is opening a new gate. But that gate will only open if you believe you're worthy to walk through it. And Neptune, the planet of intuition and hidden truth, whispers softly to you. Your worth is not based on what you've endured. So can you live without pain now? Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and there's enough money in your account to make the dream real, not to impress anyone, not to run away, but to finally live, not just survive. What would you do? Would you bring back that dream you buried years ago? Would you move your family somewhere peaceful, safe, soft, or would you hesitate, turn your back, and say, I'm not used to receiving? Aries, you are primal fire. You were born to burn bright, but if all you ever do is burn for others, one day you will burn out. 2025 is here to remind you, you can live for a cause and still live in comfort. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can lead and still have a home to return to. Money is not the reward. Money is the test. And you, Aries, you've studied long enough. Now it's time to step forward, not from a place of lack, but from a place of light, to stand in your worth and say, I deserve to live in abundance, not because I'm perfect, but because I gave everything, even when I had nothing left. You've been fighting long enough, Aries. Maybe it's time to learn how to live without holding your breath. But before the real light can rise, there's one more moment that must pass, quiet, tearful, but sacred, in the most unspeakable way, because sometimes, to begin truly living, you have to say goodbye to something that once meant everything, and that is when a funeral finds you. Another door begins to open, not with light, but with tears, some new chapters in life. Don't start with excitement, but with a goodbye. Aries, you know that feeling well. The stillness of standing in a familiar room that now feels empty, without the soul who once filled it. The ache of wanting to scream, but your throat's gone dry. The quiet breakdown of a heart that has learned how to endure, but now has nowhere left to hide. You've always been strong, the one who never breaks, but even warriors need to lay down their sword, to breathe, to cry. And if you've ever lost someone, not to betrayal, not to anger, but simply because life split into two shores, one for the living and one for the ones who have gone, then you know what I mean when I say there is pain that never makes a sound. There are words that never got to be spoken and now live inside your chest, like sacred ghosts. Maybe it was your father, someone you didn't get to hug one last time. Maybe it was a partner who slipped away without a word, or maybe it was a version of you that died. The one who once loved with their whole heart, who still believed in good things until they collapsed alone in the dark. Funerals in real life don't always come with flowers or black suits or violins. Sometimes they show up as a quiet afternoon when you find an old shirt in the closet and start crying, or a song plays in a random grocery store and you freeze, unable to move, or it's the night you dream they came back, smiling and then disappeared again. Those moments, those are the silent funerals your soul is holding behind closed doors. But you know what, Aries, in every funeral, no matter how faded, a seed is planted, and for that seed to grow, you need one thing: to let go. Let go of the guilt for not saying I love you one more time. Let go of the shame for continuing to live when they could not. Let go of the belief that crying makes you weak, as if tears were forbidden for someone born of fire. No, Aries, crying doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. It brings you closer to your own soul than anything else ever could. And you know what's strange? When a soul leaves this world, they don't disappear. They just change shape, from presence to essence, from distance to embrace, from holding your hand to whispering in the wind. And you, with your fiery intuition, you always know when they are near. It's the chill that runs down your spine, even though the room's not cold. It's hearing their name in a stranger's voice. It's when you suddenly burst into tears while washing dishes for no reason at all. That's not random. That's their soul returning. I believe God never leaves a soul lonely, and the ones who have gone are still allowed to visit, not to live again, but to comfort, to send a sign. You're not alone. Maybe you've never prayed before, but tonight there's one question I want you to ask yourself. Who is the one I never got to say I love you to? If they could hear you right now, what would you say? You don't need to shout. You just need to close your eyes and whisper. They will hear you, because souls don't need ears to feel. They only need one thing: your truth. A funeral. Then it's not the period at the end. It's the comma, where one story quietly shifts into the next. A chapter unfolds where you're no longer the one bearing unsaid wounds, but a bearer of light from the one who's no longer here. You cook the meal your mother once made. You laugh the way your father used to, unrestrained. You begin to love again. This time not with a timid heart, but with a soul that's learned how to let go. Because true love never dies with someone. It just finds a new way to live. And here's the most beautiful truth about the funeral coming in 2025. It doesn't only close a painful chapter, it opens a gate for new love to walk through. Maybe you don't believe in destiny, but I believe that those who bravely release the past are given a chance by God to take a new hand, not to replace, but to continue the song. And soon you will feel it, a glance, a soul, a connection that needs no words, like someone you loved and lost, smiling through the eyes of someone new. Not a repeat, but a completion, not replacement, but love's return in a form that's softer, healthier, and timed just right. And Aries, you deserve that. You've lost enough. You've been strong for far too long. You've survived things that felt like survival wasn't an option. Now, God places a gift before you. But for your hand to be soft enough to take it, you must first let go of what's been holding you back. They who have gone, they won't be angry if you live on. They'll be relieved to know you'll laugh more, live deeper, and love once more, without holding anything back. A funeral isn't about saying goodbye forever. It's about learning to say, I will live with your light inside me. And when you release, when your tears have run their course, when your heart finally softens, you'll hear it, the softest knock on the door, a soul arriving, a new promise waiting to be kept, a love standing at your threshold. They won't burst in with fireworks. They will arrive in presence. Someone who won't blind you, but will make you feel safe, because next is a wedding, not on a stage, no orchestra, just two souls finding each other again. Aries, have you ever loved so deeply that you lost yourself? Loved so much you forgot your own voice's warmth, forgot how to laugh naturally, forgot your own dreams, just to make them feel whole, only to wake one day and realize you'd lost both them and a piece of yourself. Love for an Aries has never been gentle. It lands like a storm, it consumes, and if you're not careful, it turns you to ashes. You love like a warrior full throttle, and that's why when love ends, it doesn't just hurt. It feels like the world collapsed, not because they were too big, but because you placed all your light in their hands. Maybe you once vowed, "I'll never love again," not because you didn't need it, but because you're afraid of losing yourself again. Still, somewhere deep inside, a small voice keeps whispering each night, "Will the next one be gentle enough not to break me? Will there be a soul who doesn't try to fix me, but simply walks with me, with all the scars, the light, and the broken pieces I carry?" And in 2025, you will hear the answer, not in words, not in roses or letters, but in a gaze that stops you in your tracks, a gaze that doesn't try to decode you, that doesn't try to fix you, that doesn't expect you to be better. It simply sees you and whispers, "I found you." No orchestra, no wedding dress, but there is a wedding of souls, because the soul standing before you has known you too long, maybe from a past life, or some moment you've yet to remember. They didn't come to begin anew, but to complete what once remained unfinished. This love doesn't launch with, "You are my everything." It begins in silence, a strange but comforting kind of silence, a presence that removes your need to prove yourself, to breathe, and they will still be there. Aries, you don't need someone to rescue you. You need someone strong enough to sit beside you while you save yourself. This time, love doesn't arrive to burn you. It arrives to keep you warm. It doesn't find you at your brightest. It arrives in the night, when you're curled up, and you still have enough courage to open the door. No rush, no pressure, no strings, just a presence so real you don't have to play strong anymore. You can be silent and they won't leave. You can be vulnerable and they will hold your hand. You can still be healing and they won't expect perfection, because they don't want a better version of you. They just want you, raw, broken, but still alive. There may be times you want to push them away, like you learn to protect yourself. You'll say, "I'm not sure I'm ready." You'll search for reasons to run, to hide, but the strange truth is, they'll still be there, not knocking, not needing, just waiting for you to open your heart, because they know you don't need conquering, you need trust. And this time, you won't have to choose between love and freedom anymore. True love is freedom. Aries, listen. This love coming for you isn't a reward for being good enough. It's a reward because you didn't give up, even when you felt broken, even when you thought you couldn't love again. God saw you in your sleepless nights. He heard your unspoken prayers. And when the time is right, when your heart no longer rushes, when you've learned to live without needing someone, He will bring them to you, not to fill your emptiness, but to walk beside you into a life without fear. You don't need perfect love. You just need a soul with enough patience, a hug that's real, a look deep enough to let you believe, "This time I won't run away." A soul wedding doesn't begin with music. It begins with a gaze that lets you think, "This time I stay." If your heart is opening as you listen, maybe you're ready. This isn't the end. It's when the universe reaches out and says, "You've traveled far enough to be loved without sacrificing yourself." And when you move past the fear of loving again, you'll see real love doesn't fill a gap. It turns the emptiness into sacred space, a home where two souls remain true to themselves and choose to stay together. Aries, if your chest breathes a little easier now, if someone edges into your mind as you listen, that might be a soul knocking on your heart. And if you're brave enough to answer, a miracle is waiting, because next is not another love story. It's you with God, with your soul on the path home, not as a warrior, but as a healer. Aries, have you ever felt like you had to always be someone, stronger, faster, smarter, like you had to keep fighting because only victory would make you worthy? Only winning would keep you from being left behind. You've lived like a soldier in a trench, where falling wasn't an option. You've tied your self-worth to the times you didn't cry, to the times you said, "I'm fine," even when your whole world was quietly collapsing inside. And one day, you realized something heartbreaking, that in the chase to be loved, you'd forgotten to love the one person who needed it the most, yourself. Spiritual transformation isn't a thunderstorm that changes you overnight. It's slow, gentle, but deep enough to make you stop living as a shadow of who you truly are. There's a beautiful teaching in Buddhism. Spiritual practice isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the pain, before the masks, before the weight. And your journey, Aries, isn't about extinguishing your fire. It's about learning how to let it stop burning you so it can warm others instead. You were a warrior, but now it's time to become a healer. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to always be right to be loved. You don't need to control everything just to feel safe. Because now, you're learning how to love without needing to own, how to show up without needing to prove, and how to live without fighting every day just to survive. God didn't create you to live your whole life armored and bracing for battle. He created you to be alive, soft, real, and whole. He knows how hard you've tried, how quiet your nights have been, as you wrestled alone with questions that never seemed to have answers. And now, He's calling you back, not to conquer, but to rest. Imagine that, an afternoon where you don't have to earn your place in the world. You just get to breathe, to exist, and still be loved. Spiritual transformation doesn't always come in fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in tiny, holy moments, when you choose to walk a little slower instead of running. When you finally say, "I'm tired," and don't feel ashamed. When you look in the mirror and instead of criticizing, you whisper, "I'm still here and that's enough." You don't have to be the blazing sun every day. Sometimes being a small candle is enough, warm, still, and real. You know something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to rise after a fall, but to sit down and admit, "I'm not okay." And when you dare to touch your pain, you stop being its victim. You become the guide, not because you read a book, because you were broken and still chose to love again. And the most beautiful part, when you heal yourself, you create space for others to begin healing too. You become a mirror, not perfect, not polished, but real enough for someone to look into and whisper, "If they made it through, maybe I can too." Aries, you don't need to be stronger, you just need to be more honest. Honest with your sadness, with your fear, with your deep, aching desire to be held, to be understood, to be wrapped in arms that don't ask who you need to be in order to be worthy. God doesn't need you to be perfect to love you. He just needs you to come home to your truest self, your rawest self, your most human self. And when you finally return to who you really are, everything that once left you behind will begin to return, because you're no longer chasing the light. You've become the light. And if you're still listening right now, I don't believe it's by chance. I believe God led you here at the right time, in the right breath, in the exact moment you were asking, "How do I stop fighting just to exist?" And the answer isn't in a journey outward, it's in a journey back to you, back to the one who created you. And He didn't make you to just survive like a warrior in a never-ending war. He made you to live as a soul who knows how to love, how to forgive, and how to receive a life where you no longer have to defend yourself just to feel safe. And when you truly come home to yourself, something miraculous happens. The dreams that once slipped away, the people who walked out, the chances you thought you missed, they'll come back, not loud, not rushed, but gently right on time, because finally you're ready to receive, not cling. You know, Aries, there's something strange about life. Sometimes the pieces that seem disconnected end up forming the perfect circle of a sacred design. Money, a funeral, and love. Sounds unrelated, doesn't it? But in the language of the soul, everything has meaning, if we're awake enough to see it. And 2025 isn't just here to bless you. It's here to complete a karmic cycle your soul has carried for lifetimes. In Buddhist teaching, they call it karma, not punishment, not debt, but simply the natural result of what we've planted through our thoughts, words, and actions. That's why karma isn't something to fear. It's a doorway to liberation. If you have the courage to walk through it with your eyes open and your heart no longer resisting. Money comes into your life, Aries, not to make you rich, but to show you you don't have to live in lack to be a good person. You don't have to keep sacrificing to prove you're worthy. You don't have to just push a little more to be chosen. Money comes to heal the relationship between you and your worth. Because sometimes what you truly need isn't more income, but more belief that you deserve to live abundantly without guilt. And then a funeral enters your life like a cold wind that cuts through the skin, but you realize it didn't come to break you. It came to help you let go. Let go of a person, let go of an old version of you, Let go of a dream, one that was once beautiful, but no longer fits the shape of who you've become. In the eyes of the awakened, a funeral is a soul's ritual of release. It's the way back home. Not the end, but a quiet beginning. A beginning that feels lighter, more grateful, more alive after all those years spent holding on to what had already died. And then, love steps in, not flashy, not fast, just another soul, standing quietly at your door, not trying to fix you, not trying to change you, but simply willing to walk beside you. This love doesn't want you to escape your life. It wants you to open to it, to learn how to love without holding on, to live without fear of loss, to connect without needing control. You see it now. Money teaches you how to receive. Loss teaches you how to release. Love teaches you how to open. 3 doors, 3 lessons, 3 transformations, and all of them lead you back to one place, yourself. Astrology doesn't speak of fate as something fixed. It speaks of potential. And in 2025, as Jupiter and Neptune offer their sacred support, you're entering a higher cycle of soul evolution. Not because you were chosen, but because you're ready. Ready to stop living like a warrior, fighting the ghosts of the past, and begin living as a soul who understands everything happens for a reason. Everything is divinely guided. Everything is sacred. You don't have to hold it all anymore, Aries. What's truly yours will always find its way back to you. Those who truly belong with you, you'll never have to grip with both hands, and the dreams that once fell asleep will rise again, not when you demand it, but when you start living in alignment with your light. This world doesn't need another perfect person. It's aching for people who are real. And when an Aries, who once lived in trenches, who once wore armor like second skin, chooses to step out with a bare, beating heart, that person doesn't just become free. They become a flame. A living torch that lights the way for others still lost in the dark. Because you don't need to preach, you don't need to prove, you don't need to perform, you just need to show up. As you are, breathing, honest, and no longer begging to be loved. And it's in that moment, the karmic circle finally closes. No more chasing, no more fear, no more pretending you need to earn your place. Because now you know, God chose you a long time ago, long before you knew how to say his name, long before you ever believed you were enough. Aries, everything you thought you lost, your dignity, your faith, your chances, your love, yourself, all of it will come back. Not when you demand it, but when you release it, when you stop gripping and start living as if you were made of light. And when you live like light, everything that vibrates on that same frequency will find its way to you. You won't need to call it. You won't need to chase it. You won't need to hold it too tightly. You'll simply become the version of you that it's always been searching for. There will be nothing else to fix, nothing left to find, because everything you've ever needed, you've always carried right there in your heart. There's a moment in every soul's awakening that no one can predict. It doesn't come with noise. It doesn't come with flashing lights. It doesn't arrive as some grand sign. It comes in absolute silence. It's that moment when you sit alone in a room you've known forever and suddenly realize you're not missing anything anymore. You're not chasing. You're not striving to be enough. You're not aching to know who will stay until the end, because finally, you've stayed with yourself, and that is the most sacred thing of all. Aries, you've come so far, you barely remember where you started. You've lost, you've fought, you've loved, you've let go, you've believed, and then you broke, you got back up, and still stumbled again. But there's one thing you never lost, the quiet light still burning inside your chest. No matter how many times the world turned off the lights. People think Aries is strong because you don't cry, but the truth is you're strong because you keep going, even when no one stays to witness it. You've passed through 3 great gates in 2025. Money came to test you. The funeral came as a sacred farewell, and love as a quiet promise. All of it felt separate, but in the end, they were just pieces guiding you back to the wholeness of your soul. And when you finally return to yourself, you'll notice something. The things that once broke you now become the foundation of your strength. The things that once made you weep now become the bridge that lets you understand others. The times you were rejected now become the filter that shows you who's truly meant for you. You don't need a perfect life. You need a life that's real. Real with sorrow, real with longing, real with faith even when it's fragile. And you know what? It's in that truth that God places his hand gently on your shoulder and whispers, "You don't have to do anything more for me to love you. I've loved you since before you were born, and I will never stop loving you." even when you forget who you are. Aries, you don't have to run anywhere else to be saved. You don't have to beg for a second chance to be forgiven. Because the moment you forgive yourself, that's when every door begins to open. You no longer need validation. You no longer need someone to say you're enough. Because for the first time, you believe it, not because of anyone else, but because your heart has had enough, and now it's time for it to live, not in survival, but in peace. This is the real gift of 2025 for you, not money, not romance, not praise or recognition, but return, a quiet return, one without glory, but deep enough that you'll never feel empty again. You are the light, Aries, not because you're flawless, but because you dared to walk through the dark and came back to tell others, I survived, I forgave, and I found myself again. The world doesn't need to fully understand you. They just need to look into your eyes and feel that something in you makes them want to live more honestly too. That is how you change this world. Not with noise, but with presence, with the light of a soul that's been shattered but never lost its faith. If you're still listening right now, I know you didn't stay by accident. Maybe you haven't said it out loud. Maybe no one's ever seen the wounds you carry, but your heart felt something in this journey. A part of you that's been asleep for too long is waking up. And if you feel like you're breathing a little easier, feeling seen, feeling understood, feeling touched without needing to explain yourself, just know this: you are not alone. God is here. The universe is here. And we, those who have been broken, who are still healing, who still choose to live with open hearts, we're here too. Thank you, Aries, for walking so far and then choosing to come home. Thank you for not giving up on yourself, even when everything inside you felt tired. Thank you for letting your light burn again, even if it's just a small flame, because even a small, honest flame can light the way for so many lost souls. I wish you a 2025 filled with peace and wholeness. It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be real. It just has to be you, and that is more than enough. Herb.